Hello and welcome or welcome back on my channel. For everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Becky, and on this channel there is everything related to languages, language learning, and so on. So if you're interested in these kind of things, then feel free to subscribe. So for today, we're in my Notion language learning hub. I mentioned in my last video that I use Notion to track, and I thought it would be interesting to have a quick view. Just a little disclaimer to start with. I know Anna Lankowska, I hope that's how you pronounce her. Don't come for me if it's wrong. Posted her updated Notion language hub. I will link it for you. And it's kind of similar to mine. And I had just finished my template as I saw the upload. I watched the video and it's at some time and at some points very similar. It's kind of scary how similar. So, but I didn't copy from her, and I just want to say this so you don't come after me for not mentioning her. So as you can see, we're here in the template because I don't like butter in my actually hub. So I don't delete something I shouldn't delete and so on. I have my hub here, so we can have a quick look later on in that, but we're here just in the template. So as you can see, that's the starting page. There's just a little section to navigate and a little weekly plan and the languages and a little quote to add a little color. And then there is a little page kind of hidden, and it just holds all databases and pages inside the hub. So then I would say we're just going to get started, and the rest you will see later. So in this get started page, it's just a few prompts and questions you should ask yourself, or I ask myself, to have everything in the database I need. So I have all languages here. Here's just one, so you can kind of see how it looks. And then you add your why. So you want to read in this language because your favorite author is writes in this language. That's why. And then choose a flag. I like to have here a little flag as an icon for every language. And yes, I know many languages are spoken in more than one country, but I just use the flag I like more, or the flag it's better to defend to see the difference between the languages. My brain is just kind of not wanna say that word, or I can't just say it. So we're giving, or I give my languages every one a color. It's quite simple. And as I stated here, it's for the flashcards. You will see them later. Then I have our order to my languages, and you can see it's just here the order, and I like to use add and the language to link it to this page. So I have a quick add, and it's also synced to another site where you can have all languages on a view. And as you can see, I have just first and then the second, and the second has two parts. So first and second, you can add more, and so it's for languages, or I like to use it for kind of as example, if you have a language who has different or not a language. I like to use, I thought while I was designing this, I thought about sign languages. Sign languages there's a sign language for every other language, or for most of them there are two. So you have ASL, American Sign Language, so American Sign Language, you have BSL, that's British Sign Language, you have GSG, that's German Sign Language, and so on. And if you want to learn how to use both, or what's the difference between them, then I thought that would be good. So it's kind of this order. And that's just an example. So I kind of set it on two. And then also very important, I like to have the number of order. So the number I define here, oops, into my language database. So that's why there's a first language. And then the start date, and also which languages are active at the moment. You can change that at any point in time, but I just like to have it here for the starter. And I have you will see it later, I have a check-in where I regularly check in and see if this actually is still an active language. So then the resources, more information about the resources. So I have it kind of split it up into different things. And for every category, I have subcategories. So for books, I have language books, magazines, card systems. So language books are grammar books, learning books, study books. Books, just simply books, are just simply books to read. So you don't study with them a language or so. For magazines, it's magazines. They're not books in my mind. And card systems are like if you have flashcards. So if I have a deck from Anki as example, and I want to have the words separately, or I learn with this card deck, I would put it in books and then as card system. That's how I use it. And it's kind of funny because Anna has, I think, the same categories or similar. So it's kind of funny. Then we add a template here. As you can see, it's for resource language 1. There's a template. And I also set here the icon. I set it to the flag I defined. It shows there. I chose for the language. Will set it to the same flag, to the same icon. And I do this for everything. So for logs, for templates, for everything related to this language will have this icon. I like it that way. So then you choose a template for each resource. So in front of each resource is the icon for the flag. It's how if I have a language resource for more than one language, like Memrise, Duolingo, YouTube, so a YouTube channel, not all of YouTube, a YouTube channel with different languages. What do I have else with more than one language? It's just so I will just have one Memrise for English, one Memrise for Spanish, one for Japanese, one for German, one for I don't know. And in front of Memrise, there will always be the icon for this language, so I know which language this is about. It makes more sense for me this way. So I have a vocabulary database. I mentioned that already in a previous video. And this way I can sort of connect the vocabulary with the resource and still have the language separate from each other. So I don't have a German resource with English vocabulary connected and so on. So it's the way I do that. Then the status is the standard status is not used, and I also have deleted if it's trash. So if I don't like the resource, it's kind of harsh to call it trash, but it works for me. Then next to use, in use, finished, and deleted if I'm finished with it. And yes, durch means finished. I'm kind of mixing my languages in my database. Then I have goals for every language, and I have a kind of a weird goals database. So not in here, but I have another goals database, and I have my language goals in both of them because I'm not a big fan from linking my big goals database where all my goals from every part of my life are in there to my languages. That's just too much. And it's kind of, I don't like it. Then a deadline for every goal. Then vocabulary list. I mentioned that already. So you have a few prompts here, what you should do or what I should do. And we can just, you see it's a link to the vocabulary database. And we can just quickly go in here and you see their languages. And also here's for the first language. And there's also for 5 languages a template, but there is no language part of it. So in the first, there's the first language, but in the second, there is no connected language because I don't have a second language in this hub template. So then we have 3 languages here, 3 views. And as you can see, there's word, language, meaning, example sentence. And I have meaning in my example sentence, always in the language of the word. And also back here is a connection to every, I just show it you in the template. So edit, it has a connection to the other languages. So to the same database, but the other languages. So first to second means the first language translated into the second. So if the first one is, for my case, German, and the second is English, then if you have in this here a German word, first language German word, then I will add here the English word and it will automatically have a connection. And yes, and it's for every language the same. So also when you have the second and the third language, it also has a connection. You just don't fill it in the first language. Yes, it's just kind of here, every here. And also here's it's this connection explained. And then we have vocabulary analytics. I kind of like to have my overview, how many vocabulary I have in my database. So I have a little vocabulary analytics and it just shows the name, and I do this every month. So you see the first is always, and I just put the 1st of May in here, and you can just add it in here. And if you have a new language you're adding next month or in May, then you just fill 1st of May was 0 and the 1st of June is maybe 15. I don't know when did you start the language. Maybe it's just 5, or maybe you're at 100. I don't know. So then we have a flashcards list. It's basically everything is explained. And I even added the formulas I have to change if I add a new language, because I want to have it as simple as possible and don't forget anything. Then we have a template, and it's after this, even there it's for the vocabulary database we added here. It's because you need the flashcards database in this template. So I just add it in here and then add the starting language and TL. It's just here this two in the flashcard, and I also put the number before it. So here it's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. The numbers stay and you can just change the language, but you don't have to. It also works if you know German is your first language. You can just use first language and so on. It doesn't matter because the formula just sees the number. Then time to make a plan, priority right now, how many time can you spend, and so on. There are a few prompts also here, and you make an action plan, and this action plan is linked into the weekly plan, and that's first. So and you have it simple, and you can then just go in this and can make a plan in here. And if you're done for this week, so I like to add in here the week, the time frame, and you can just put it in here. And yes, I prompt myself everywhere so I don't forget about it. That's kind of me. And then you can add a new weekly plan, and you can also add your languages in here so you don't have to write it every time. And I like to have in the here for the fifth, I'm at the most of time I just put others. So if I want to randomly study the Korean alphabet, not gonna do that at the moment, but random things for other languages who are not my priority or not in language 1 to 4. They are just in others, so I don't have to put that much beside them. The plan is a language. It's a language list, but you find in this language list only the active, and they're sorted now after priority. So in this it's priority and don't mix with. I have this don't mix with because I heard from a few people that you shouldn't mix like Spanish and Italian and French. They don't go well if you're learning it one day. That's what I thought. So I thought it would be clever to add this in my language list so I know if I start studying a new language. What a tongue twister. So and then we have the weekly plan, and that's basically all from the plan. And then we're back to this. And we can just have a quick look around. So these are all databases and pages in this template database, in this hub. So we have language lists. We already saw that. It's just the languages and with different categories and so on. And you can always just change that up. Then we have log. There's just every log you do. Also the planning. So the weekly plan, it's the log. So you can plan in here, and as soon as you've done this, the thing you planned, the activity, you can just check it off. So you don't have to make another plan and don't have it in two different. But I have, if I go in this view, then you see I have plan and done. So as soon as you have checked it, it's going through there and it's not visible anymore. So you have it more clear. Yes. And then we have the journal. I don't often journal, but sometimes I promised myself to write more often, so to journal more often. But at this point, this year, I haven't journaled. So I added in here to remind me to journal more, but I'm bad at that. Then we have the resources that it's the same view, so we saw that already. Then goals, same again. The randomizer. I love my randomizer. My randomizer is for two things. Once for my resources and once for my flashcards. I sometimes don't know with which resource I should study. So I have a little page, it's called random resource. And if I click in here, there will, as soon as I have resources in here, it will only show one. So you only see one, and that's the resource you study with. Because most of the time, if you have too many resources, you're just overwhelmed. Your brain can't decide which resource to use. So I use that. And for the flashcards, it's just so I only have one flashcard to answer. And yes. And as soon as I answered that question, it will automatically update and I have a new flashcard. So review time, I can't talk anymore. It's just a little database where I group my flashcards into different groups. So numbers, animals, something like that. I just put in here a new review time, and the revision count is how many times I already reviewed it. So I have up to 18 prepared. And then it just counts how many cards in there, how many I have correct, how many how good of my understanding I have, and how many I checked, so checked as done. So if there's a total correct 5 of total cards of 10, it's probably because I haven't hand in the other 5. And yes, this next understanding, it's a formula, and I got it from another YouTuber, but I don't know any more who it was. So yes, I thought it looks pretty, so I just was inspired by that and kind of build it. If you know which YouTuber it is, you can write me in the comments and I will link her channel, or if I find the video. Yes, that's all in here. Then we have check-ins. That's what I was talking about on the starting page. In this check-ins, there's just I have a monthly, I have a weekly, a monthly, and a yearly check-in. So it's just to see how well it's going and what I have to change, or so just a little control for me. So we have the weekly, the monthly, the yearly, and there are just a little questions in here, and it's kind of linked to everything, and also the action plan, just so you reflect on yourself. How good did you plan? And then the action plan for the next week. Actually, that's this check-ins. It's kind of new. So I had a real big problem the last 2 months to find time to study, and everything I planned was just I didn't get to study. So did make the check-in so to see what do I wrong, what can I change, just to have a little reflection. And I basically traded this check-ins about 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. So it's very new, and I hope it helps me. The monthly check-in is also a few questions or prompts. It's also, this is something I do regularly, so that's not a problem, but I added in here so I have it just on one place. It's just the vocabulary amount. That's what I told you before. I'm adding a new property for each month for the first to add the vocabulary count. And in the weekly, it's also a check-in with the vocabulary, so I see how many I have, and also how many do I want to add in next week, and so on. So it's just to have a little plan and can plan, and just to help me a little bit to reflect and so on. The yearly is just the same, but then a lot of prompts and so, and just see where the new year is going. Then we have progress tracker. I already mentioned I think in my last video, I like to have a progress tracker. So I see for a goal, it can be, I don't know, finish the Genki book, Genki 1 book. So then you have chapters 1 to, I don't know, how many chapters has Genki? I don't know at the moment. So you just can add this as a goal, and you can set the target goal to the number of chapters the resource has, or you can just make it a 1 and the current 0, and you can progress it, track in here at which lesson you are. I like it to have it for big resources, like I use Lingo Legend. Lingo Legend has so I use it for Spanish at the moment, and in Spanish there are like 232, I think. Focus points. I call it focus points. I don't know how it's called in the app, but I call it focus points. And that's a lot to count every time. So I like to have it here as a progress. Just add it. Oh, I finished that. I finished that. I finished that. So I can see my progress, even though the progress in the goals. So if you go into goals, there is progress, and the progress is a percentage. So if you're 1%, and that's that for a whole month, because the target goal is that big, then it's demotivating. So I like to have a little progress tracker to see the little steps I take. That's all with the databases. Then we go to pages. To get started, we already saw. The new language is basically the same as get started, just a little smaller, and with only based on adding, and not have to start from the beginning. So it's just, again, add language, add the picture and flag, and so on. Then put the new language in order. So it's, again, this synced box. then add template to log and so on. So just the things we already had in the get started, but less, because it's just adding a new language and not starting a new template. So then we have languages. Languages is just a overview for different things. So you have here the order. That's the sync box again. Wow. If you're hearing like raining noise, I'm sorry, it's raining on my window. So we have just here synced box here, and then we have all languages here with an active button. Then we have the languages we started. It's empty at the moment because this has not a starting date. And then in the future, the languages you want to learn somewhere in the future, and you can set a planned start date. And you can also check the next, then it will show up down here. So in the future is you want to learn it anywhere. Next is you want to learn it next. So the next language you start is this, or the next two languages you start are these two. So for this, and then we have conlangs, and it's just I have for every language I have a family, so language family. You can you can actually choose, and then you can just have here the conlangs. I like to have them separated, so to see what conlangs I have in there. And then we have no at the moment. No at the moment is you have a language you don't want to study at the moment, but that's why I have it in here. I like to put in my database, in my vocabulary database, vocabulary I stumble upon. So if I have a French vocabulary, I will put it in, even though I don't study French. And French is one of the languages is at the moment where I don't want to study it. So it's a no at the moment. But if I have a French vocabulary, I like to add it into my vocabulary list, just because I like it to have it in there. And if I choose to study language, I have a few vocabularies already in there and can start studying with the flashcards and don't have to look up words for the moment. I can just start and don't have to think about it. So I have to know at the moment. Yes, it's also a button, so it's in the language. There's a little button, no at the moment, and that's all. And you can just choose it, and it's here. And yes, so then we have the random resource. We already discussed that or explained that. Then the weekly plan, we have already seen that. And then we just have the archive for the weekly plan. So it's just, you basically just take the weekly plan and dump it in here, and then you can make here a new weekly plan and have the new. And I put, like I said, I put the date range in here so I can look back and see, then I was doing that, or I wanted to do that. And this one just goes back into this one, and we will just delete that and put that up here. So, and yes, that's all. And like you see, there's always template, because it not just happened once that I was linking the two databases, so the template and the actual database. So I put a template behind every database in the template, or behind every page in the database. But that's everything in here. And there, if you're clicking here, it's just it will just automatically made a new page in the check-ins database. So for the yearly, monthly, and weekly, I just have them up here, so I'm reminded about it. And yes, then that's just to add quickly a log, a resource, a vocabulary. Just you see something, vocabulary, go pop. You have a new resource, someone recommended to you. Here is your new resource. And you can just add it in here. And then we delete that again. That's everything in here. So that's more or less self-explaining. So then we will just switch over into my. So now, as you can see, we're in my normal database with a few in here. So I'm at the moment a little bit ill, so I don't put myself up to that a lot of things. And as you can see, I even put vocabulary transfers in here, so I don't plan new vocabularies if I don't have time to add them. So it's just at the end of the week a little vocabulary transfer for every language. And then we have down here my languages, and with the starting dates, the learning days, and when I last studied. And the last studied, it depends on the logs, so it just publishes itself when the last time I logged something is. And that's actually not correct. I have to change that. We don't have the 1st and 2nd April yet. So that's because I put it in here. I planned it, and that's kind of why it's this way, because I made the mistake to add something I shouldn't have. Well, that doesn't matter at the moment. We will just leave it that way, so I don't change anything yet. And then we have everything like that. And one thing, actually, I'm doing this really long already. So like the first language list I had in Notion, I did this. The start date of my mother tongue, I just put my birthday. And it's funny because Anna made her new language hub, and it's just the same, but she does the other it has a little different approach, because I just have a start log when I start new language now, it's just takes it from the log, the starting date. But a few languages I started before using Notion, so I don't put a log in there. I don't have the log, therefore. So I just put another property in the language list. It just says start date. And if the start date is empty, it just takes the log start date. But if there's something in the start date, it takes the start date. I like it that way. And yes, and if you're wondering why English 3, I have little something in my database. It's writing on the PC. For me, it's also a part of language learning, but I don't want to have it in German, English, Spanish, or Japanese, so I put a separate language in there. And the second language is the computer writing, because I think you should know how to write on the computer in every language and what's the difference in the writing system and so on. So where the new letters on the tastature. Yes, so the second is the machine writing. In German, it's Zehn-Fingersystem. And I don't study it at the moment, so it's not active here. It's kind of, I don't have time. And I can't in these four languages, I'm kind of, I know where the letters are, so I can't write in these four languages. So it's not that much of a need to study it. But I will eventually again, just because I like to know that. Yes, and as you can see, I have a little plan for the weekend. And yes. So anything else? I don't think so. Oh, I can show you actually. I don't have many resources yet in here, because I had another resource database and I'm just changing that. It just needs to load. So as you can see, there are all my resources. Not all, but many. And as you can see, I also have for French and Italian resources, just because I'm kind of like to collect. So if I need them, I have them. So as you can see, now it's Duolingo from English. So I'm the English, the EN, IN means English. It's just so I can differentiate, because there are Duolingo from probably every language. So I can kind of see from which language. And I have my random resource, and then I can use it. Then we go back there. And yes, that's probably everything. Yes, so we go back to this template, and I would say that's the end of the video. And feel free to ask in the comments if you don't understand anything, or let me know if you liked it or not, and if you're interested in anything else in my Notion database. So see you next time. Bye.